Terrible noise. Okay, so are you ready, Peter? You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, got you. Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah, you're unmuted. Then everybody else is muted.
Right.
And you can now share screen. You should be able to share your screen.
Okay, can you all
Yeah, that's it, Peter. You're there.
Right. Just move that slightly. Okay. The title page explains the setup of the display. The precursors are a little bit thin on the ground because they're very, very, very difficult to find. Then we move on to the contracted mail, that is the services provided by independent steamship companies to the basically to the French government. The initial part of that is from 1843 to 1871. Then, following the Franco-Prussian War and the rescheduling for the from 1880 the French conquest of Tunisia and the protectorate up to 1895, 1900. Prior to 1843, mail to and from Algeria or France and Tunis was carried by private vessels or naval avisos, which were fast, well-armed steamships. From 1835 to 39, the company Bazin of Marseille organized a few sailings to Algeria, concentrating operations there from 1841 and with a government grant carrying mail. In 1843, a new 3-year contract was signed and a dedicated line to Stora, the port of Philippeville, was inaugurated. This contract was renewed in 1845 for a 9-year period, with the line to Stora being extended to Tunis. And in 1854, Bazin merged with the company Leon Gray to form the General Steam Navigation Company. 1854, the Messageries Impériales had a contract with 3 sailings per month to Tunis. By the following year, the company de Navigation Mixte started a monthly service to Tunis. And in 1858, a movable box was installed outside the Marseille offices of the Messagerie. This was for a last-minute mail, in other words, mail which had missed the last collection of the day. It could be taken down to basically to the quay, to the ship, where it was placed in a box, which was then detached from the wall, taken on board the ship, and dropped off at Stora or Tunis to be processed. In 1870, the Messageries contract was abandoned and the Compagnie Valerie was awarded a contract which was to remain in effect until 1880, when the Compagnie Générale Transatlantique took over. This is a map showing the situation of Tunisia, sandwiched between Algeria and Libya, with the main port of Tunis, La Goulette, and then other various small towns, couldn't really call them cities, dotting the coast. The earliest precursor I have is this one, which is, sorry, I'm struggling with it. Which is a letter of 1842 from Tunis to Marseille, and endorsed to be carried by Captain Gilbert on his steamship to Marseille, where on arrival it was fumigated at the lazarette and then charged 2 décimes for local delivery. This is a plan of the city of Tunis. The green blob is the new post office, which was built and opened in 1888. The yellow is the site of the original French consulate there, and that was where the first post office was established. This is a copy of the submission to at the time, the Ministry of War, for the establishment of a regular service by steamship to Tunis via Stora. An interesting document which actually takes quite a long time to absorb and read. This is the first 2 pages. Then we have then we have the 3rd and final page. So this was granted in February 1847. Mail posted at the French Consular Postal Agency, which was officially a sub-office of Bonn in Algeria. The little map at the top shows the western route of the steamship service between Algiers and Bonn. And then from there, the mail was transferred to the Tunis line, which is shown in green dots and dashes there. So this is a letter, 1848, where from Tunis, addressed to Marseille, carried to Bonn, transshipped to a vessel which plying the major route to Marseille. And interestingly, it's using, on arrival in Marseille, is using a locally made hand stamp for the 2 décimes charge, in accordance with the 1835 tariff from Algeria, which is with 1 décime for the sea voyage and 1 décime for local delivery within the town of, within the port of disembarkation. 1854, the tariff of August 1849 for mail to be delivered within the boundaries of the port of disembarkation. Rate 30 centimes or 3 décimes for per 7.5 grams, franked or unfranked. With the arrival entry mark struck at Marseille again, similar sort of letter, this time with the hand stamp of the French consular post office in Tunis, struck in black. Hello. Hello. Can you hear me, Chris?
I can hear you. Yes, sorry, I was muted. Yes, I can hear you, but we've got a blank screen.
Yeah, so have I. Oh, hang on.
Oh, there we are. Come up
There
again.
we go.
All right, I'll leave myself unmuted then.
Okay. Again, tariff of 1849. These are the French tariffs, of course. And mail carried on the vessels of Louis Arnaud Toulache Fair. Here we have the cachet of the carrying paquebot company, together with the Tunis consular hand stamp, this time in blue, and the entry mark struck at Marseille for mail arriving from Tunis via Beaune. This letter is addressed to Voiron, and it was taxed at 12 décimes for a double rate letter at 2 times 60 centimes. Who are you doing this?
Oh, it's just a bit slow.
See,
Yeah, that's it.
I think we've skipped something actually.
No, it was all right. It was there before. You've lost it again.
Okay.
There it is. Yeah, that's it. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
This is the GC Gros-Chief Councillor 5107 on mail to Saint Etienne from Tunis in 1872. It's franked with an 80 centime Evert 32 and cancelled at the Tunis agency and in blue, which is not recorded by myself, so it's quite unusual. Carried to Bonn and then from Bonn to Marseille. With the Marseille entry mark Tunis Parbon type SALS 541A. Tariff of French tariff of 1866 for mail from French post offices in Turkey, Egypt, Tunis, and Tangiers. Rate 40 centimes per 10 grams. Well, this is a first weight step letter, posted at the consular agency, 1867, addressed to Marseille, and franked with a pair of Evert 22, cancelled 5107 at the agency, but this time in black, as is the agency hand stamp. They also received a PD hand stamp in red, which was paid to destination, so proving it's been prepared. I don't see the point of it, but it's there, together with the usual Tunis Parbon transit mark. Now this one I'm saying is applied at Bonn. What is
Going backwards.
got a mind of its own, this thing. Right. We've got here, oh, delivery note, dated March 1869 for 3 parcels carried by the paddle steamer New Freight of the company de Navigation Mixte, which was the rename of Louis Arnaud Touache Fair in 1855. These are the ones which were blank.
No, you're okay. This is
Anyway, it's gone back. Tariff of 1849. Letter from Tunis to Marseille. Letter of 1862, endorsed to be carried by the Messageries Impériales vessel Marabou. Bon transit mark and taxed at 9 décimes on arrival in Marseille. (1849) again, 1858 letter from Tunis, that's posted at the postal agency for Paris, to Albert Barr, the chief engraver at the Paris Mint, concerning the design and production of copper coins for Tunisia. Again, quite a nice piece. Now, still with the 1849 tariff, this is an underfranked second weight step letter posted in 1865 to Strasbourg and cancelled carried by steamship to Bonn, where the transit CDS was applied and the stamps were cancelled with the Bonn cloth sheaf canceller. From there to Philippeville for the sea crossing to Marseille for the Lyon night train TPO, and arriving in Paris on January 9th, 1865. Underpaid by 40 centimes, incorrect tax of 2 décimes cancelled, and the correct tax of 4 décimes applied in Paris. Tariff of 1866, mail. You've done this. Yeah, it's got it jumbled up, I'm sorry, I don't know why. Tariff of 1866 again, couple of items, single rate and double rates, letters from posted at the Tunis consular office to Marseille. Quite a pretty one down here with a pair of 40 centimes. Again, underpaid mail. Commercial letter posted at Marseille Mail Office, 1869 to Tunis, franked at 40 centimes, but designated a second weight step item. It was then taxed at 8 décimes short pay, being the underpaid rate of £1.20 minus the value of the original franking. Arrived at the Tunis consulate office to await collection by the addressee. The mail from French post offices in the Levant to Tunis, quite commercial letter from Algiers to Tunis, 1873, which arrived at the Tunis consular office on May 25th. On the hand stamp on reverse, having travelled by coastal steamer from Algiers to Bonn, where it was transshipped for the voyage to Tunis. (1872) tariff. 1873 letter from Tunis to Marseille, posted at the agency. Reached Bonn by steamship on the 19th, which is the hand stamp with an unusual shade of red before crossing the Mediterranean to Marseille. Mail posted at the Marseille movable box at the offices of the Messageries Impériales. Two items, single, first weight step and the second weight step letters. Quite a nice pair. Again, Marseille waxed mobile to Tunis with prepaid office-to-office rate. The 40 centimes cancelled on arrival at Philippeville prior to transshipment for to Tunis. Still with the Marseille movable box, this time first weight step letter with a bill of lading from the Compagnie de Navigation Mixte to Tunis, ranked at 30 centimes, with Hiver 28 and 29A, taxed at 30 centimes, being the unfranked rate, minus the value of the franking. Still with the movable box, showing the variety of hand stamp where the frame has got, the circular frame is broken. A double rate this time. Salves 502 type for the movable box. And second weight step letter from Marseille, franked with 3 20 double weight, sorry, it's a double weight letter, franked with 3 40 cents. Tariff of May 72, 60 centimes per 10 grams again, single rate. This is a first weight step letter with 2 pairs of the Hiver 53 and Hiver 60. It's unusual. again showing the type 502 hand stamp. Picture postcard from May 1880 to June 1895, the maritime services were transferred to the Compagnie Générale Transatlantique. This is a picture postcard of the Paquebot Ville de Beaune, written in October 1905 for the ordinary postcard date of 1903. And again, mail carried by the Compagnie Générale Transatlantique. Envelope posted 1886 at the new French post office, addressed to Marseille and franked at 15 centimes. Similar, but to this time to Lyon. The stamp was cancelled on arrival in Marseille and reaching Lyon the following day. All this intrigues me because we here now have a very, very tardy postal service in the village, but surprising what went on all those years ago. A consignment letter from Marseille in 1888. The goods shipped on the Ville de Beaune, which is a Paquebot shown on the postcard a few items back. With a VM hand stamp. And here we have a picture postcard of the new main post office in Tunis, opened in 1888, which is featured in the last few slides. Second weight step commercial letter. Actually posted on board or at the gangplank of a CGT vessel in the harbour at Tunis, and is on the direct route, sea route, which came into operation in 1902, I think it was. Yeah, 1902. That is quite nice. Sorry, 1902, no, 1894 it came in. And I think that is it.
Thank you very much, Peter.
I'm sorry it's got a bit messy. I don't know what went wrong.
Never mind. Never mind. Most interesting.
Right, I shall stop sharing if I can find.
If you stop sharing. Has anybody got any questions? If they've got any questions, you can pose them now or later on if you like. I will ask one actually. When do they actually start using postage stamps in Tunis?
You mean dedicated stamps?
No. I mean, the earliest you show were Napoleon's. Do they ever use the series issue?
Not that I've come across. Not
So
that
probably the 1850s.
No, I think they wouldn't. 1850s. No, I've not come across it, Chris, at all.
No, it looks like they're sometime in the 1850s with the Napoleon non-laureated.
Yeah.
Okay, then. We can always take more questions later on if we like, but
can I just say one thing, Chris?
yes.
Yeah, I know I've congratulated Peter before on this personally, but I'm absolutely amazed by the skill that he has to recreate the postmarks and cancellations. I mean, people like ourselves either chop them out of magazines or we scan them. But Peter has the gadgetry and the nous to be able to create those himself. I think they're absolutely stunning, whether they're in his articles or on his album pages or now in a Zoom. They're absolutely superb. I wish I could replicate your skills there, Peter.
Oh, for a modest fee, Mike.
Okay, then if we're ready to move on, then are you ready, Mick?
Yes, I think I am ready.
Okay, you're on.
Okay, so
you can share screen.
Share screen. Click on that. Go to slideshow from the beginning. Is that it? Is that it?
Yeah, that's perfect.
That's okay for everybody?
No,
Yeah, that's perfect.
Good. I'm just going to take out some of these boxes at the side if I can. Yeah, that's better. Okay. And now for something totally different. And I hope that it will not contrast too much with Peter's, because it really is a case of from the sublime to the ridiculous. But just to explain myself, I almost feel like apologizing before I start. But if I can explain myself here, that I have numerous interests, too many interests. My main interest, of course, is collecting French stamps, and that takes up most of my time and my expenditure. But I do have another interest, and that is collecting records. I mean, most of my modern music obviously is on CD, and I do download some stuff, but I still enjoy collecting records from the 1950s. And this is because, having been born in 1942, I became a teenager in 1955. And those of you who are of a similar age to me will know what happened in 1955. We started hearing this incredible music that was coming over from America. And it was mostly produced by a group called Bill Haley and the Comets. You remember them well. And then there were the other acts like Little Richard and other wonderful characters. And then, of course, Elvis came along really and turned rock and roll on its head, because instead of being a raucous, raw form of music, it became very, very sexy. Now, I was never interested in Elvis, but I was very keen on the old rock and rollers, and I still collect their records now. So when the lockdown started, I thought, well, here's an opportunity to go online and start digging around and see if I can find some items on eBay and Delcomp and so on. to fill my record collection. At the same time, looking for stuff to fill gaps in my France stamp collection as well. And during that lockdown, the two hobbies knitted together, and there was a definite overlap in the material that I was buying in a strange way. And this is what's brought this presentation. This is what's caused the birth, or brought the birth of this presentation that we've got here, which I've entitled "Records, Rates, and Rock and Roll." So it starts very much with records, including records that I bought actually during the lockdown, and finishing with material from my France collection, which likewise I bought during the lockdown. So here we go. I'm sorry that we haven't got any of our American cousins watching this, but I think it would be rather nostalgic for them. So what you're going to look at then is a bit of a history of rock and roll records, or certainly early 45 records, and then linking it up to something quite similar in France. So that's the introduction done with. Oh, I've got this problem again, my arrows aren't working. I think we've got to try the pointer down the bottom left-hand corner, have we? There we are. Okay, we're off. What I'm going to do is start with the history of the 45 RPM record. And it started on the 7th of December 1948 in the USA, when RCA Victor pressed these new form of records, the micro groove 7-inch 45 RPM record, and they were pressed at a factory in Sherman Avenue in Indianapolis. And the first titles were released the following year on the 15th of March 1949. Initially, the 45s were manufactured in different colors of vinyl according to the musical genre, but the practice was gradually phased out for economic reasons, with all the regular pressings being made on black vinyl by 1952. And on the left here, we've got an advert for the very first 45 RPM records, and it shows, you can see the newfangled record player, the various colors at the bottom left-hand side, and you can see towards the bottom of the right-hand column the prices that were being asked for, and I've enlarged that in the center of the screen there. So the red records were 95 cents each, and all the other colors were 65 cents. And here's a cover then on the right hand side. And so this is one that I bought last year, and I love it because the sleeve is the original sleeve, and it's still got its price tag on for 95 cents. And as you can see from the label, it says Red Seal record. It was in fact a red vinyl record. And just to put everything into perspective, in 1949, the pound was worth $4. And I certainly remember in those days, if you had 5 shillings, you'd call it a dollar.
That's right.
You remember that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So 95 cents was 4 and 11 pence. So that record would be the equivalent of 4 and 11 pence. Now, 4 and 11 pence as a teenager was a lot of money, but 95 cents to an American was next to nothing. And the cheaper ones, 65 cents ones, then were what, 3 shillings and 3.3. But I certainly remember my birthday when I was 13 years old. My parents bought me a record player, but it wasn't quite the one I wanted. It was one of those old wind-up ones. Only took 78.
Yeah.
They didn't understand what was going on, really. I said I wanted a record player, so they bought me one. It was a second-hand one, but they did give me a great big white £5 note to go and buy some records. Now, that was a lot of money, and I couldn't spend all that money on records, so I took my £5 note to the bank and got it changed for proper money, the sort that rattles in your pocket. And I did buy some my first 78s. Now these are the records. Then these are the first records that were produced in the USA. On green vinyl, you had country and western music, and there's an Eddie Arnold record in '49. Sky Blue was international music. Here we've got Lawrence Duchamp and his Red Raven Orchestra. What a great name. Rhythm and Blues. Originally they were called Cerise, but they quickly became known as the Orange Vinyl Records. And again, I'm not quite sure how the Americans would pronounce this. Obviously, it's going to be Illinois, but then is it going to be Jacquet? The more likely to be Illinois Jacket, his orchestra in 1949. The popular classics were issued in Midnight Blue vinyl. Here we've got Al Goodman in his orchestra. I recognise that name. And I certainly recognise the next name. The yellow label was for children's records.
Yeah.
And here we've got Roy Rogers. And finally, classical was on the red vinyl, which I've mentioned before. And here we've got a record by Caruso. Notice all those records are before 1952, and therefore they were in their colours. By 52, everything went to black, except some red printings sort of carried on. On the left then, popular music was always black right from the very beginning, but then it continued, all records continued in black. There's a very early one, again from 1949, very early 45. And then the other companies in America likewise switched from 78s to 45s. And this is one from my early rock and roll collection here. This is a little company, Essex Records. And there is a recording of Rock the Joy, and by this little cowboy group called Bill Haley with his Saddlemen, who obviously were going to become much more famous in 2 or 3 years' time. In London, in the UK, we didn't see 45s until much later on. And I can't find really any documentation exactly when they arrived. Now, this record here is on the London label, which is the outlet for that Essex label that we saw earlier. You can see they're recorded by Essex Philadelphia. And by this time, Bill Haley had changed his name. He was Bill Haley and the Comets. And that's one of the earliest ones I can find. There may be others, but I can't find any documentation. Whereas in France, documentation is readily available on the introduction of 45s and 33 RPM records. They were first issued in America, in France in 1951, both 33s and 45s, more or less at the same time in 1951. And they were produced by Pathé Marconi in their factory at Chatou on the outskirts of Paris. And this is a 1952 release by Lucien Delisle. So it looks as if then France was ahead of us in producing the 45 record. Now, the Flexidisc, which I'm sure you're familiar with, was a natural progression of the 45 RPM record. Its appeal being its lightness, its durability, and low production costs. And although the 45 was difficult to damage, with the Flexidisc being really flexible, it never broke or shattered. And also their flexibility and their thinness made them ideal as inserts in magazines and envelopes. And they were a cheap and novel means of promotional giveaways, often in exchange for coupons or vouchers or proofs of purchase. But again, who invented the Flexidisc? Okay, we know that the USA invented the 45 RPM, but who invented the Flexidisc? And you go online, you get very much contradictory information. One source says it was the Americans, the Evatone company, that came up with the Flexidisc in 1962 and was known as the Evatone sound sheet. Other sources say it was Japan, who in the early 1960s introduced the Flexi sheet or the Flexidisc to accompany a magazine called Sonorama. But in France, I have found this trial pressing here, dated 8th of September 1959, and France also issued a magazine called Sonorama, and as you can see, the date there is October 1958. So we know that these Flexi discs were available in France much earlier than sources say on the internet. So that's a trial pressing on the left-hand side. All it comprises is a 2-minute fanfare, followed by a short promotion of the company's recording, pressing, and marketing operations. And on the right is the first edition of Sonorama in France. And it was an audio news magazine published monthly from October 58 to July 62, thereby predating the Japanese version. Each edition, and you can see that I think from the illustration there, had a ring-bound spine, and it contained 6 integral single-sided 33 RPM flexidiscs. The magazine had a spindle hole die cut through every page, and you can see that in the middle of the red disc on the cover. And in order to play the flexi disc, you simply opened your magazine at the appropriate place, back on itself, before placing it on the turntable. And this first edition of Sonorama contained recordings by Gilbert Bécaud, Sacha Distel, and the Platters, all names that you'll remember from the 50s and the early 60s. By the late 50s then in France, we had the flexidisc well and truly established, and they weren't just included inside magazines. They were now a record in their own right. And the main producer of these flexidiscs in France was a company called Multitechnique. And again, I've looked up on the internet about this company, and it seems to have been airbrushed out of history. These discs, they were 15 centimeters wide and weighed about 5 grams. And these records were offered by manufacturers of consumer products. It was mostly children and teenagers who were targeted. And the products purchased would contain vouchers, which could be sent with the required number of postage stamps to the manufacturer of the goods. And the flexidisc then was placed in a sleeve, which was franked and addressed to the applicant. And the variety of sleeves printed for all these records in themselves create an attractive collection. And as the actual record sleeve was the envelope which received the stamp and the postmark, they make quite an attractive collection philately. These records then were sent to, mostly to teenagers, but they were sent at various rates, and this is what makes them interesting. Some companies chose the letter rate, some companies preferred the printed matter rate, and others used the bulk mailing rate. Bear in mind the record weighs approximately 5 grams, as does the insert that sometimes went into it, which you can see in the middle, and the actual envelope itself, which was a sort of a stout card, also weighed 5 grams. Now, this is the earliest flexidisc that I own, and it was released in 1959 by Grosjean Brothers, and they called their record collection Grosjean Rama. In all, they produced 35 titles from between September 59 and June 1964. and all were sent out at the letter rate. So that's their very first record there, Ballad of Iolanders. The cover on the left then was posted on the 15th of October 1959. And this, you see, I discovered while I was looking for material to add to my Marianne de Müller collection. It's not the earliest one I've seen. I mentioned they appeared in September 1959, and that one is actually still on Delcamp, but it's rather expensive. I think someone knows it's particularly early. Who was this Grosjean family? They're worth talking about a little bit. They were, in fact, the Grosjeans were brothers who produced cheese in Lons-le-Saunier. And from left to right, you can see the promotion from a cutting from a newspaper promoting their records. In the middle, you've got examples of their cheese labels, and on the right, you've got the coupons that were found actually inside the packets or boxes of cheese that had to be sent off with the stamps. What is interesting is that the Grosjean brothers, as I said, they worked in Lons-le-Saunier, but it was the same place where the Bell family were producing their world famous cheese, Baby Bell, and La Vache qui rit, the laughing cow as we know it. But the Grosjean cheese, being a rival product, was represented by a cow with a serious expression and a pair of glasses, because their argument was that La Vache qui rit was a frivolous cheese, and their cheese was only to be found in serious homes for serious cheese lovers. But in fact, La Vache qui rit took them to court over this, and the complaint wasn't in fact resolved until 33 years later in 1959. So here we have examples of the Grosjean records that went out. And the records changed their colours, the envelopes changed their colours. It was all an attempt by the manufacturer to get teenagers to part with their money, albeit only for paying the postage. But of course, the kids will be nagging their parents, wouldn't they, to buy the cheese so the kids could get their records. But it gives collectors of like myself here, who wants to collect this sort of aspect of the postal system in France, a variety of material to collect. And as you see, we've got the letter rate here. Grosjean used the letter rate, and we've got the various rates here from the 25 franc through the 25 centime. And then more examples of the 25 centime letter rate, and an example of when Grosjean decided to become extremely modern and have their records printed in black. More examples then of the letter rate being used. France Lait was a group of dairy cooperatives that were just north of Lyon, and here an example of their envelopes and the records, which were always white records. Unfortunately, initially they started writing the names of the recipient on the envelope, and after that they sellotape labels on. Well, I'm afraid that after what, 50 years now, the sellotape was cracked, and it's very difficult to get complete addresses now on their envelopes. But again, you've got examples of rates here: the 70 centime second step, the urgent letter rate, and the non-urgent letter rate. On the one on the left is a record produced by Café Maurice in Toulon, and notice that these companies, they would have the records shipped to them from the Paris producer, Multitechnique. He would ship them off down to the companies in their respective towns, Lyon, Toulon, etc., and they would then forward them to the people who had ordered them. That's a nice example of the Café Maurice. They're not a common one at all. And in the middle there, you've got, you notice I put copyright Café Maurice there, because they, in fact, the Café Maurice wrote a history of the company, and there was one page dedicated to these flexidiscs, which they promoted, with an example of one of the coupons that they would issue. I've yet to find an actual coupon itself. Another company which was interesting is Les Disques Bleus. Les Disques Bleus, nothing to do with the cigarettes. It was a packaging company in Paris, which used the company Ziger instead of Multitechnique to produce their records. But that was a nice item to go into my blason, my coat of arms collection. Right, we move on now to the companies that used the printed matter rate for sending their records out. Here we've got Claudel, which was a Normandy producer of dairy products in Pont-Hébert, and that used a machine franking there, but which clearly says Pont-Hébert on it. What was different was that most of their records were not 45s, but 33 extended players. So you had 2 tracks, as one would express. But I do like they've got the imprimé cachet on there in red halfway down the envelope. So we're down to a very, very low cost postage here, the 10 centime printed matter rate of the time. Another company, Milliard Frères, which produced pasta products, was founded in Lyon in 1929, but after its factory was destroyed in the war, it relocated to Nanterre, where it reopened in 1948. So as you can see from the postmark, these records were sent out from Nanterre. And you've got the promotion leaflet on the left-hand side. You've got examples of the coupons in the middle, and then the envelope and record there on the right. And just a few more examples of the printed matter rate then, from the 10 centime up to the 12 centime printed matter rate. Yeah, another one from Francelet. And then 2 other companies which you don't see their material very frequently. You've got Clément, which produced, let me remember, rusks. Yes, they produced rusks, and they were located in Rouen. And then Mob, which produced confectionery in Amiens. Now, I think everyone recognises Bananier. They produce lots of advertising in booklets of French stamps. And here we've got an example then on the left of publicity. Again, it's just an advert snipped out of a newspaper. You might not be able to see, but within the advert, the record being promoted there is their number 2 record, numéro 2, which is the one you find there in the middle of the screen, Salade de Fruits. Examples again of the coupons, and they were printed on the side of the boxes, the packaging. So you simply just cut them out. And then on the right-hand side, you've got the Disco banner envelope in which the records were sent to the customers. And the logo on the front there, as on the promotional cutting on the left, depicts the Senegalese artillerymen who became, say, their logo for all the time they exist. I think it still exists now, but the logo was gradually changed, as I'll show you in a moment. the records continued to show the Senegalese artillerymen, but people were arguing that it was too stereotyped and slightly racist. They didn't change the logo on the disc, but they changed the logo on the envelope, which is more stylized and consequently less offensive. And then the rates you see, we've got the 20 printed matter and the 13 non-urgent letter rate, because by 1969 printed matter didn't exist anymore, and so they sent their records out by the non-urgent letter rate. And the one on the right is a France lay one again, which we have met before, but it's a nice example of the use of the 20 centime Marianne de Cocteau. Now, I was hoping there would be somebody from France on this program, because I've got no idea how to pronounce the name of this product. It's always seen in capital letters, and therefore no accents on it. Now, if there was an acute accent on the I, or if there was a diaresis on the I, we would say paik. But is it pronounced pe, as in P-A-I-X for peace, or is the C pronounced? I do not know. So I'll call it paik, and I shall probably learn later on how to pronounce it properly. But here are exact. This is one of the companies that chose to send all its records out by the bulk mailing rate. So on the left, the 10 centime, then the 25 centime, and on the right, the 45 centime. And this company really produced some quite interesting looking covers. And I think, Chris, you've got a copy of the one there on the right.
I have, that's true.
Yeah, you recognise it, yeah, yeah.
I recognise it.
And the last frame, again, showing examples of the 22 centime bulk mailing rate. From on the left, Casino. Casino was a chain of, is still a chain of small supermarkets. And the one in the middle is Franco-Russe, which made desserts. And the one on the, what I must add about the Franco-Russe one, I like the cachet on it. It's not a very clear one, and I've not seen one any clearer than that, but you have got envois en nombre cachet in the middle of the envelope there. And finally, on the right-hand side, a record dispatched by Kemmel, the confectioners from Bourbourg, which is between Calais and Dunkirk. And this is the only example I've seen of a record being sent through the post at this with a pre-cancelled stamp on it. So there we are. That's my records, rates, and rock and roll. And all I can say is keep rocking.
Thank you.
Excellent, Mick. Excellent.
Okay. Right. Now I've got new share that's come up, Chris, rather than.
You got what?
I've got. So if I stop share, there we are. It's okay. It's happened.
Yes.
I've got little boxes overlapping one another. Okay, there we are, folks.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
That's something we haven't seen before.
I'm sure you haven't.
Got one comment from Alan that says 1956 Flexidisc. Elvis speaks the truth.
Oh.
So Alan, if you'd like to unmute yourself, would you like to expand on that? You'd like to, yeah, that's it.
Well, Mick said at the start that he wasn't an aficionado of Elvis Presley. Unfortunately, in my historical past, I am an aficionado of Elvis Presley. And when Elvis first came out, there was, this tirade of interest in, a sexy artist, etc., etc. It was what you would call a dream for marketing. and they produced a flexi disc where Elvis speaks the truth. It's
Oh,
very
right.
similar to the black and white interview that he did on the Hal Gardner TV show. So it's like, you know, a number of questions are asked and Elvis tells the truth about himself. And that was actually, I think it came with what was called the American TV Times. And it's quite a rare thing to find. But if you look it up, then 1956, Elvis speaks the truth.
Right, thank you very much.
That is a flexi disc. I don't know how much it's worth. Some are worth thousands, some are.
I know, yeah, they are. I mean,
worth nothing.
I mean, the Beatles used to give them away at Christmas, didn't they, with their Christmas cards?
Yeah.
And some of those fetch a lot of money now. Yeah, okay. So I'm just checking my dates. Yeah. I mean, that would then be the earliest one. Certainly precedes the French one in '58. Yeah. Thank you very much indeed for that. I shall look that up and start saving.
Mike, there was a lot of your. Sorry, Chris.
I'll stop